Shabbat shalom, everyone. Allow me to start this sermon with a statement that you've probably not heard many sermons start with. I really like almonds. There you go. I said it. I like almonds. You might even say that I'm nuts for them. I'm sorry. That was bad. All right. Something else to apologize at Yom Kippur for. All right. Now look, they're not my favorite thing. Maybe this has happened to you. As I've kind of grown into myself and figured out what I like and what I don't like, I realized the other day almonds and almond-flavored stuff just hit the right spot for me. Perhaps I have a nostalgia for the taste and really the smell of almonds, because my first job was at a clothing store in the Killeen Mall. I don't recommend visiting the Killeen Mall. I certainly don't recommend working there. I worked at this clothing store in the mall when I was 17, and right outside my store was this kiosk that sold sugar-coated roasted almonds. Yeah. They were amazing. And looking back, I think the only reason I worked there as long as I did was because of these almonds. I can tell you it was not because I enjoyed working at the store. Working retail in the mall is rarely fun. You're locked in this room all day, there's no windows, and you're just kind of forced to look at this very interesting parade of weird people just walking by, back and forth. There's mall walkers in the morning. There are people that talk on their phone way too loudly when they walk by. There are parents yelling at their kids. They think that'll make it better. Come on! There are teenagers breaking up. And meanwhile, you're making minimum wage, and the person that's supposed to be your boss is rarely competent. So I would work in this store all day, folding shirts, straightening merchandise, interacting with crazy people, and all the while, I'd be smelling this intoxicating, sugary smell from the almond kiosk, and I'd be waiting, licking my lips, ready to devour them once I clocked out. One woman would come into our store about 3 times a week, and she'd try on different outfits, and she'd come out of the dressing room, and she would find me and would come up to me and say, "Does this outfit make me look spiritual?" And every time I would reply, I said, "I don't know what that means." And years later, I'm a rabbi now. I still don't know how an outfit from the Killeen Mall can make one look spiritual. But it didn't matter at the time because I had the almonds. Everything was going to be okay as long as I had the almonds. Years later, when I lived in Jerusalem, my friend Joseph Shamash, who is of Jewish Persian descent, he would take me to these small Mizrahi synagogues around the city that were made up of Jews that had fled Iran right before the revolution of 79. And the prayer service was, for me, beautiful and intimidating. It was wholly familiar, but yet very different. The davening was different. There was no sermon. All of the aliyot were auctioned off. But yet to be in a room full of Jews on Saturday morning still just made sense. And after the service, they had a kiddush, which was awesome. They had figs and dates and amazing rice dishes with breads and coffees. And you know what else they had? They had almonds. So many almonds. Candied almonds. Roasted almonds, almond cakes, almond puddings, you name it. I was in Persian heaven. That's where I want to go when I die. Persian Jewish heaven. And as I ate the almonds at Kiddush, I just devoured them, I should say. Again, I thought, as long as I have the almonds, everything is going to be okay. Friends, this week we read from Parshat Korach, a portion that at first glance seems filled with confrontation, destruction, and despair. But later it leaves us with a different message. Korach, Moses' cousin, is driven by jealousy and ambition, and he publicly challenges the authority of Moses and Aaron in front of the whole Israelite nation. There's a divine showdown, and we're told that Korach and his followers are swallowed up by the earth in a dramatic and terrifying display of divine judgment. But the Torah doesn't end the story there. Immediately after this unsettling episode, the Torah offers a quieter but profoundly redemptive moment that rarely gets talked about. God commands Moses to collect the staffs from leaders of each tribe, including Aaron's staff to represent the tribe of Levi, and he does. So all of these sticks are collected and placed in the tent of meeting overnight. What happens next is totally unexpected, especially because it just followed a story about the ground swallowing people up. This next anecdote is random. We're told in chapter 17, verse 23, quote, "The next day Moses went into the tent of meeting, and behold, the staff of Aaron from the house of Levi had sprouted. It brought forth buds, produced blossoms, and bore ripe almonds." Did you hear that? Aaron's staff turned into an almond tree. You see, my friends, as long as there were almonds, everything was going to be okay. In fact, according to Jewish tradition, you might not know this, the almond tree is actually recognized as a symbol for hope. You see, in the Middle East, the almond tree is usually the first tree to blossom, and its white flowers signal the end of winter and the emergence of new life. Because of this, we get all sorts of prophecies and metaphors concerning this particular tree. In his first prophetic vision, Jeremiah sees a branch of an almond tree and is told by God that this is a sign that God is watching to make sure that God's word is fulfilled throughout the world. Under God's watchful eye, no harm can befall the Jewish people. Everything is going to be all right. Elsewhere in the book of Zechariah, the prophet has a vision of a golden menorah flanked by 2 olive trees with 7 lamps and a continuous flow of oil. We're told that the menorah had, quote, 3 cups made like almond blossoms on each branch. The almond is part of the very structure of the menorah, which is a symbol of divine light, watchfulness, and the constant presence of God's love for us. It's as if Zechariah is telling us once again, as long as we have almonds, everything is going to be all right. Friends, if you're like me, perhaps you too have been shaken with all the recent events of Israel and Iran this past week. In such turbulent times with such scary headlines, one can easily get overwhelmed into thinking about what could happen. But you should know that those feelings are totally natural, especially after a traumatic situation. But keep in mind, the people in the aftermath of Korach's rebellion were also shaken, confused, and perhaps even afraid of God's justice. But God did not abandon them to fear. Instead, God showed them that life can emerge from something that appears to be dead. God showed them that from dry wood, blossoms can still appear. God showed them that leadership, when guided by holiness and humility, can still bear fruit. So if you're feeling worried tonight, if you still have anxiety, that's okay. Because the God of Israel has not and will not abandon our people, even in the midst of anxiety, frustration, and yes, even war. We know that God is right around the corner telling us everything will be okay. I'll end by telling you all that we have 2 new members of Agudas Achim this week. They are an older Jewish couple from Iran, and after having met with them for only 10 minutes, I can already tell you that they are amazing and wonderful. So I was speaking to them the other day about their lives growing up in Iran before the revolution, and they told me about the evils of the modern-day Iranian regime. They told me about how the Ayatollahs have ruined the lives of so many good and decent people living there. And when I listened to them, I felt my heart sink. Why is there so much evil in the world? Why are there so many people trained to hate Jews? I felt hopeless. But as I was leaving, this couple, the wife said to me, "Rabbi, it was wonderful meeting you. You're welcome to come to my house, and I'll make you Persian food. Rice, kebabs, and almonds." And when she said that, I smiled for the first time in a while, and I finally had a renewed sense of hope. Because, friends, hear me out. As long as we have almonds, everything is going to be okay. Shabbat Shalom.